Well, you know what? Going back to self-deprecation for a second, so and linking it back, of course, to my interest in evolutionary theory, self-deprecation could be viewed as a costly signal in the biological sense, right? So costly signaling is the idea that in order for a signal to be honest, it must be costly to you. So the peacock's tail is because it is burdensome, because it makes you more likely to be picked up by the predators. Then if I'm still wearing that big peacock's tail and I'm still around, then the peahens can be confident that I am a superior genetic stock because despite my tail, look at me, I'm standing. So to have the self-confidence to be self-deprecating is the ultimate measure of confidence, right? Because and if I can speak of myself, I can engage both in faux aggrandizing, if you've seen me on Twitter, or how I just did, right? Now, people don't get that. It's actually, I'm being, so for example, I will post a selfie at a beach and I'll say stupendous, sublime, sexy, and the beach is also nice. Now, most people will get that I'm doing this shtick, right? This self-aggrandizing shtick. But yet my haters will construe it as pathological narcissism. So they don't get this subtle interplay between self-deprecation, faux self-aggrandizing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that, well, it's kind of part of the feature of the modern world as well, which is your haters don't want to understand what you're saying. They want to find a way to misinterpret it as badly as possible. And of course, a lot of people don't understand sarcasm. They don't understand irony. When this Sam Harris clip went super viral in the last few days, Francis and I, on one of our Raw shows, pretended to be upset that not enough people tagged us in the conversations about it because we get fake outraged about everything. It was the same video where I pretended to be outraged by my 3-month-old son not letting me sleep, because the funny thing is, like, how could you expect a 3-month-old? They don't have,
It's amazing.
they don't make conscious decisions, right? But people don't want to understand the irony, or maybe they're not capable. I don't know why. And so, yeah, I mean, look, the world is such now when people have the opportunity to misinterpret everything you say and do in the way that helps them, and it's not fair to what you're doing. But I think also you're right, actually, coming back to the self-deprecation and the comedy thing. I always said the most difficult thing to do and the thing that requires the most confidence on stage is to be self-deprecating. Because if people sense that the self-deprecation is real, as in you actually feel bad about being overweight, or you actually feel bad about your life being chaos, or whatever it is, or not being able to find a spouse, then they just feel sorry for you. So it has to be, you have to deliver these tragic truth bombs about your shitty life with a lot of confidence. Otherwise, people will just feel bad for you. So it's an interesting dynamic.
In my own context, I mean, as you know, I mean, I use humor and sarcasm and satire tons of times. It's a unique feature of my reality because I'm also, the fancy schmancy professor. And so the archetype of the professor should be that I'm always solemn. I always have a haughty air of profundity, right? I smoke a pipe while pontificating in the air because I'm better than you. I'm smarter than you. I am here. You're just a little rube. When you're funny, when you engage through your humor in a form of existential self-deprecation, right? I mean, it takes a lot of self-confidence, if I may say, to do the skits where I'm hiding under my desk, or to don a pink, wig and pretend that I'm ultra woke, or to literally self-flagellate myself. Now, a lot of the imbeciles and morons, some of whom are my colleagues, will write to me privately and say, well, you're the greatest, but why do you demean yourself through your humor? And I say, now I absolutely know that this person is a certified moron, because they don't appreciate what satire, but never mind, just humor is part of the rich tapestry of life. I'm a multifaceted being, right? If I am being interviewed right now about the evolutionary roots of morality, I'll be as professorial and austere as you might expect of that situation. But in other situations, as if humans have behavioral flexibility, I can be a joker and a buffoon. And it's so regrettable to me that I exist in a profession where to be always serious is to be profound. Whereas in your case, you don't really have that because you were a comedian. So at least you're allowed the opportunity to be funny. We expect that of you. But professors should never be funny.
Yeah, I think it's a very silly limitation that people will try to impose on your profession too. Because if you think about, as comedians, we think about punchlines. You're basically the way that the stand-up act works, particularly when you're starting out, is no one knows who you are, so there is no pre-existing buy-in. You go on stage and you're buying people's time with your jokes. So you go in, you say a joke, people go, okay, I'll give this guy another 5 seconds. You do another joke. Okay, maybe this guy's worth another 6 seconds. And over time, that's what you're doing. And so I sometimes do serious talks about some of the stuff that I cover in the book, about, the West and all of that. I always make sure to load that up with humor between the serious points, because I want you to know that another punchline is coming. And it may be coming 5 seconds from now, it may be coming 10 minutes from now, but here's a punchline so that you know another one is coming. And in between, I want to squeeze in the stuff that I actually want to communicate. And that, in my opinion, is a very powerful tool, whether you're a professor, a comedian, a YouTuber, whatever. Like, humor will buy you people's attention in a way that almost nothing else will.
Well, and it's funny because oftentimes when I'm, stopped on the streets by fans, I'm not sure if I should feel that it's a compliment or not, that typically they will refer to my funny tidbits more often than not. Oh my God, I love your self-flagellation routine, right? So they're not coming up to me and saying, I loved your hormonal analysis published in the paper Organizational Behavior and Human Decision Processes. So it sticks, right? Comedy. Now, of course, behind it, there's a very serious intent, which is I'm trying to persuade you of an important message, right? So some of the most brilliant people in history have been famous satirists. And that's why, as you know, in the Soviet Union or anywhere else where you have dictators, the first people we have to get rid of are the people with the sharp tongues, not the guys with the big muscles. The guys with the big muscles are easy to handle. But the guy who, through a couple of well-placed words, can bring you down, that's the guy we have to eliminate.
Oh, 100%. And this is why I talk in An Immigrant's Love Letter to the West. This is why I feel so passionately about the importance of being able to satirize both sides of the political spectrum and people in power, whether that power is political or cultural or whatever. Because I saw with my own eyes, we had in the 1990s, when the Soviet Union collapsed, a brilliant satirist called Viktor Shenderovich in Russia. He made an equivalent of what in the UK was called spitting image. These are puppets of politicians talking and having conversations. And this was the first time, obviously in my life, I was very young, but also in my parents' lives, and even in their parents' lives, 3 generations, the first time when they got to see their political leaders actually being made fun of. And it was incredible. And guess what? The moment Vladimir Putin came to power, the first thing he did, shut it down.
Beautiful. Exactly right.